The city doesn't announce itself. It simply moves steady and self-assured, as if it has nothing to prove. Sidewalks stretch wide and confident, carrying a mix of purposeful footsteps and unhurried wanderers. Conversations spill softly from cafe patios, where mugs clink, chairs scrape lightly against concrete, and laughter drifts just enough to feel personal, never intrusive. You sense it immediately. This is a place that breathes at its own pace. Traffic flows without urgency, not silent, not chaotic, just present. Cars glide past murals painted on brick walls, their colors slightly faded by sun and seasons, yet somehow more meaningful because of it. Cyclists weave through the streets with ease, sharing space naturally, as if the city was designed with human rhythm in mind, rather than strict rules. You notice how people move here, upright, relaxed, dressed for comfort but with an edge of intention. No one seems in a rush, yet everyone knows exactly where they're going. Denver feels open, even when surrounded by buildings. The sky stretches wide overhead, giving everything a sense of space. It's the kind of openness that quietly settles your thoughts. You begin to realize that the city doesn't crowd you. It gives you room. Room to think, room to notice details, room to slow down without feeling left behind. Storefront windows reflect passing faces and passing moments. Inside, small businesses hum with low energy, bookshops where pages turn softly, bakeries where warmth drifts outward, and neighborhood markets where familiarity replaces formality. People greet each other with nods instead of words, the kind that says, "I've seen you before, you belong here." Even as a visitor, that feeling brushes past you, unexpected and disarming. There's a subtle blend of old and new here, not clashing, but coexisting. Historic brick buildings stand beside modern glass structures, neither trying to outshine the other. You sense respect for what came before, paired with quiet confidence about what's coming next. It's not flashy, it's not loud, and that's exactly the point. You notice how nature isn't pushed to the edges. Trees line streets casually, not ceremonially. Patches of green appear between intersections, inviting short pauses. People sit on benches not to rest, but to exist, to scroll, to think, to watch the city pass by. The air feels different here, lighter somehow, as if the city remembers it's part of something larger than itself. There's an underlying calm, but it's not sleepy. It's alert, creative, curious. You can feel it in the way conversations shift topics quickly, from work to travel to weekend plans that almost always involve being outdoors. This is a city where ambition doesn't shout. It listens. And then it moves with purpose. As you walk deeper into Denver, you begin to sense that the real story isn't found in landmarks or guidebooks. It's in the spaces between. The unplanned turns, the streets you didn't mean to take, the coffee shop you wandered into because it felt right. This city reveals itself slowly, rewarding attention rather than demanding it. And that makes you wonder, if this is just the surface, what's waiting beneath the rhythm you're only beginning to hear? The deeper you move into the city, the more its rhythm becomes familiar. Streets stretch forward with an easy logic, guiding rather than directing. Side roads branch off casually, inviting exploration without pressure. You notice how Denver doesn't try to impress through spectacle. It earns attention through balance. Movement here feels intentional, but never forced. Pedestrians pass with a quiet confidence. Some walk alone, earbuds in, eyes forward. Others move in pairs. Conversations unfolding naturally as if the city itself is part of the dialogue. There's a shared understanding in the way people navigate sidewalks and crosswalks. Space is respected, time is flexible, and no one seems burdened by unnecessary urgency. It's a lifestyle built around awareness rather than speed. Public spaces blur the line between work and leisure. You see laptops open at cafe tables, sunlight reflecting off screens as people pause between meetings or ideas. Coffee shops feel less like pit stops and more like extensions of daily life. Baristas remember names, regulars linger without apology. The atmosphere encourages creativity without demanding productivity, a rare balance that quietly defines the city's energy. Denver's streets tell stories through small details. A chalkboard sign outside a corner cafe announces a live music night. A community bulletin board layers flyers for yoga classes, local art shows, and neighborhood cleanups. These aren't advertisements, they're invitations. You sense how connected the city feels at a human level, how local life still matters here. Transportation flows with surprising ease. Bikes roll past effortlessly. Public transit hums in the background, reliable without demanding attention. Even driving feels different, less aggressive, more cooperative. There's a mutual understanding that everyone is sharing the same space, heading toward different versions of the same day. As you pass through busier corridors, the city doesn't lose its calm. It simply changes tone. Retail streets feel active but approachable, window displays are tasteful, not overwhelming. Shopping here isn't about excess, it's about experience. Boutiques mix with familiar brands, offering choice without chaos. People browse slowly, coffee in hand, unbothered by time. Work culture reveals itself subtly. You overhear conversations about startups, remote jobs, design projects, outdoor brands, tech roles, and creative freelancing. There's ambition here, but it's paired with an understanding that life exists beyond office walls. You begin to feel that Denver values sustainability, not just environmentally, but emotionally. Burnout doesn't feel celebrated here. Balance does. Even the architecture seems to echo this mindset. Buildings aren't towering monuments. They're functional, open, welcoming. Large windows invite light inside. Outdoor seating spills onto sidewalks. The city feels built for interaction, for moments of pause between motion. As the streets continue to unfold, you realize something quietly powerful. Denver doesn't push you to become someone else. It invites you to settle into who you already are. And as that thought lingers, you start to wonder, what happens when you slow down even more and step into the neighborhoods where everyday life truly lives? The city begins to soften as neighborhoods take over. The pace changes subtly, almost without notice. Streets narrow just enough to feel personal. Houses and low-rise buildings carry quiet character, each one slightly different, each one telling a small, private story. You sense that this is where Denver reveals its truest self, not in grand avenues, but in familiar corners. Cafes here feel lived in. They don't rush you. Tables are spaced comfortably. Sunlight filters through large windows, and the air carries the gentle rhythm of espresso machines and low conversation. Some people write, others simply sit, watching the street like it's part of a long, ongoing film. You notice how no one seems out of place. Locals, newcomers, students, remote workers, all blending into the same calm frequency. Neighborhoods feel thoughtfully human. You pass small bookstores tucked beside vintage shops, yoga studios sharing walls with bakeries, art spaces hiding behind unassuming doors. Creativity doesn't announce itself loudly, it waits to be noticed. Murals appear unexpectedly, turning everyday walks into visual surprises. These details feel intentional, as if the city encourages curiosity without demanding attention. Green spaces emerge naturally, not as grand escapes, but as everyday companions. Parks sit comfortably between blocks, inviting people in without ceremony. You see joggers moving at relaxed paces, families spread across blankets, friends sitting cross-legged in quiet conversation. There's no performance here, the kind that reminds you how much a city can give without asking anything in return. Trees line sidewalks generously, softening the edges of concrete and steel. In some places, nature seems to press closer, reminding you that Denver never fully separates itself from the outdoors. The boundary between city life and natural space feels intentionally blurred. You're never far from open air, never disconnected from a wider landscape. Universities and schools quietly shape these neighborhoods too. You feel it in the energy, curious, forward-thinking, quietly ambitious. Students walk in loose clusters, discussing ideas that feel both personal and global. Education here doesn't feel isolated behind gates. It flows into the city, shaping cafes, libraries, and public spaces in subtle ways. Local businesses thrive on familiarity rather than scale. Owners greet customers by name. Regulars return not for convenience, but for comfort. These neighborhoods don't chase trends, they create routines, and in doing so, they offer a sense of belonging that feels increasingly rare. As you continue moving through these residential pockets, the city seems to lower its voice, inviting you closer. It feels safe to linger here, safe to imagine daily life, safe to picture yourself staying longer than planned. And as the streets gently lead you onward, a new question begins to form. What kind of future does a city like this offer to those who choose to build a life within it? The city shifts again, not in pace, but in intention. You feel it in the conversations you overhear, the places people gather, the subtle focus that settles into the atmosphere. Denver doesn't frame work as a destination. It treats it as part of a larger rhythm. Careers here seem woven into life rather than placed above it. Some are modern and open, filled with natural light and quiet collaboration. Others are tucked inside renovated brick buildings, carrying a sense of history alongside innovation. You notice how work environments feel less rigid, more adaptive. Laptops appear just as often in cafés as in formal offices, signaling a city comfortable with flexibility. Opportunities here span across industries, but nothing feels overwhelming. Creative fields intersect with technology. Outdoor brands sit comfortably beside startups. Healthcare, education, design, engineering, and remote work all coexist without competing for attention. There's an unspoken understanding that success doesn't have to look the same for everyone, and that realization feels built into the city's culture. Education plays a steady grounding role. Universities and colleges quietly shape the city's mindset, not through prestige, but through presence. Students move confidently through neighborhoods, contributing to the energy without dominating it. Libraries, study spaces, and campus-adjacent cafes act as bridges between learning and living. Knowledge feels accessible here, integrated into everyday routines. You sense a forward-looking attitude, but without the pressure of constant acceleration. People talk about goals, plans, and growth, but rarely in a way that feels frantic. There's time to think, time to adjust, time to step outside when ideas feel stuck. The city seems to encourage progress that doesn't cost peace of mind. Work-life balance isn't marketed here, it's practiced. You notice how schedules seem designed to leave room for personal life. Conversations about deadlines coexist naturally with plans for weekend escapes, evening walks, and creative pursuits. It feels like a city that understands productivity improves when life feels full. Community support shows up quietly. Networking doesn't feel transactional. Collaboration replaces competition. People recommend opportunities without expecting immediate returns. It's an environment where growth feels collective rather than isolating, and that makes ambition feel lighter, more sustainable. As you stand within this rhythm of effort and ease, you begin to see Denver not just as a place to visit, but as a place to build, a city that allows people to chase progress without losing themselves along the way. And as that thought settles in, another question emerges. How does a city that values balance choose to celebrate, unwind, and truly enjoy itself? Enjoyment in Denver doesn't arrive with spectacle. It unfolds gently, revealing itself through moments rather than events. Entertainment here feels woven into everyday life, not set apart from it. You notice how people gather without urgency, meeting not to be seen but to connect. Attractions feel approachable, never overwhelming. Cultural spaces invite curiosity rather than demanding attention. Music drifts from intimate venues where sound feels personal, shared between performer and listener. Art appears in places you don't expect it, blending into streets and buildings instead of hiding behind grand entrances. You sense a city that values expression without ego. Nightlife carries the same philosophy. Even as energy rises, the atmosphere remains grounded. People laugh freely, conversations deepen, and the city hums with a relaxed vibrancy. Bars and gathering spots feel social without pressure, lively without chaos. There's room to talk, to listen, to simply exist within the moment. Shopping becomes less about consumption and more about discovery. Local makers, small boutiques, and thoughtfully curated spaces offer items that feel personal. You get the sense that purchases here often come with stories with faces attached, with meaning beyond the transaction. As you move through these places, you begin to notice how Denver never tries to impress you with excess. Instead, it offers consistency, comfort, authenticity. It trusts that if you spend enough time here, you'll understand its appeal without needing to be told. People linger because they want to, not because they're chasing something. The city allows space for reflection, for quiet joy, for shared moments that don't need to be documented to matter. You realize that Denver doesn't demand your attention, it earns your affection. And that's why it stays with you. Not because of a single landmark or experience, but because of the way it made you feel while moving through it. The sense that life here unfolds at a pace that respects both ambition and peace. As you step away, physically or just in thought, you're left with a question that doesn't rush for an answer. What would it feel like to slow down and let a city like this shape your days? There are corners of Denver that don't appear on maps or travel apps. Places where the city feels almost private, shared only by those who wander with intention. You might stumble upon a mural tucked behind a coffee shop, its colors vivid, against an old brick wall, hinting at stories the city refuses to tell aloud. A quiet alley might reveal a tiny courtyard, alive with plants, benches, and the occasional cat weaving between legs. These are moments that feel accidental, yet somehow deliberate, like the city is rewarding careful attention. Cafés that don't make the guidebooks serve coffee that tastes like comfort and conversation. Locals linger, speaking softly, their laughter low and rhythmic. You notice the way sunlight catches the edges of worn wooden tables, and the faint aroma of baked bread drifts to the sidewalk. Step inside, and you're immediately part of a rhythm you didn't know you were searching for. Small shops and galleries offer treasures that feel intimate, personal. Handcrafted goods, forgotten vinyl records, independent art prints. Each item feels like a secret handshake between you and the city. You realize that here, discovery is its own reward. Every street corner, every side street, becomes an opportunity to connect with the human stories quietly pulsing beneath Denver's surface. Parks and green spaces hide moments of serene escape. A single bench beneath a cluster of trees, a winding trail behind a less traveled neighborhood, a riverbank where ducks glide unnoticed. All these places encourage pause, reflection, and the realization that life in the city doesn't have to roar to be alive. Nature and urban life coexist seamlessly here, and if you pay attention, you see both thriving together. Even food becomes a hidden delight. Small eateries, food trucks parked in unassuming corners, local bakeries tucked between apartment blocks. They offer flavors that surprise and linger, far from the crowded tourist strips. Each bite is an invitation to taste Denver in a way you hadn't imagined, connecting you to both the culture and the people who shape it. These hidden gems are subtle, almost shy. They won't shout at you. They wait. They reward curiosity. And in finding them, you begin to understand Denver in a way that guidebooks can never teach. A city not just seen but felt, one quiet human moment at a time. As you step back into busier streets, carrying these small secrets, you realize something essential. The city's heart doesn't belong to monuments or maps. It belongs to those who notice, those who wander, those who slow down just enough to let the hidden beauty find them. And suddenly the question becomes irresistible. If this is what you've discovered in the quiet moments, what else is still waiting, quietly, just around the corner?